What's up, YouTube, and welcome to the Illumineers Archive. I'm Nathan, Illumineer626, and I have for you a deck today that I'm extremely looking forward to myself. This is the deck I intend to play myself and really start to enjoy the developing meta for this game. So, let's take a look at a deck that I like to call Sinister Intentions. As you can see, this is an Amber Emerald deck, but it's mostly an Emerald deck. And its whole point is to focus on one of the things that Emerald does best. Putting out characters that your opponent is going to be punished for dealing with. So, the other thing that you've got set up is you have the Shift Hades, who quest for extra lore based off the number of villains you have in play. He should win you the game the turn he comes down, since majority of this deck quest for a good amount of lore. 30 of the cards quest for 2 or more lore. That's half your deck. So, in a situation where you and your opponent are racing, you should outpace them. And then, when your opponent realizes that you're outpacing them, and they go to challenge your characters, you're going to turn around and get the benefit out of it, because you're either going to get to banish their guy for free, draw yourself cards, make them discard cards, return a character to the owner's hand. Like, everything around this is designed around you benefit. So, let's just go ahead and start taking a look at what we have. You've got Stitch and Duke of Wesselton as your 1 cost. You just want to have a 1 cost play option in this deck. That way, you can potentially do something on turn 1, since your goal is to get out and start taking the lead early. So, since your goal is to be questing very often, you pretty much always want to have a turn 1 play. Next, into our turn 2s. You're looking at Cruella de Vil and Flynn Rider. We've also got Be Our Guest, but unless you absolutely need to, you're not going to play that on turn 2. Both Cruella de Vil and Flynn Rider are going to serve the same role. You're going to immediately start questing with them the moment that they drop, and your opponent's going to get some negative backlash when they go to challenge and get rid of them. Onto our 3s, we've got Cheshire Cat and Jasper. Cheshire Cat is filling the same role as Cruella de Vil and Flynn Rider, but now you're adding to the list of effects. Not only can you return things to the hand, make your opponent discard, now you're also banishing whoever banishes you. And then Jasper is going to further your goal of racing to that finish line first by making it where your opponent cannot quest. So this is going to slow them down. Hades is going to be one of our few cards that we don't want to quest with. You pretty much want to keep him ready so that you can have that target to shift into. If you get a second one out, then yeah, I could see going ahead and questing with one of the Hades. But try to keep Hades ready. Prince Philip's in that same category. He's there as a threat deterrent. If your opponent gets out something that lets them start getting ahead faster, that's when you use Prince Philip to turn those tables. Good case in point character for this is the Maleficent Uninvited. She's a 3/6. You don't take down that. I'm sorry, she's a 3/5. Mufasa's the 3/6. Both of those fill the same role here. They have 3 lore. They have too much willpower for you to easily grind through, since you're not a high offensive deck. So he's just going to let you take them down real quick, get it over with, and that immediately threatening character is gone. He's also a good counter to stuff like Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, Aladdin Heroic Outlaw, and then if the game goes really, really long, he can take out Maui. Now, Rapunzel is here so that if your opponent doesn't take one of your nice cards out in a single go, you're going to heal up, get some draw power. And really the main targets for this are actually going to be in your 5 and 6 costs. So even though you're playing Rapunzel at 4, you're not playing her on turn 4 unless you had a really good luck Jasper where it's like, hey, I quested and he's at 1. Well, let's bring him back to full and go ahead and draw. Hans, he's the start of our let's get 3 lore, and he's a villain, and we're going to come back to just how many villains are in this deck in a second. Cusco is another Cheshire Cat, but with ward. And with 2 offensive power, like your opponent even gets punished if they try to do 2 characters to take them down. Mad Hatter, kind of the same situation, but instead of banishing, every time they challenge him, you're going to draw a card. And once again, with that 4, unless they're doing a nice big character, it's probably taking them 2 challenges to get rid of this guy. So you're looking at drawing 2 cards. And with him being 3 lore pips, your opponent has to deal with them. You combine in the fact that you have Jasper, you can kind of force their hand and being like, well, I can either take down Jasper or I can go after this guy who's gaining a lot of lore. At our 6 cost, we've got John Silver, Mother Gothel, and let's be perfectly honest, the Shift Hades is pretty much always going to come down at a 6 cost. You pretty much never want to pay full cost for this guy. You want to shift over Hades to play him. Because with how fast you should gain lore in this deck, when you shift into Hades, you should be winning that turn or putting yourself into the position that you win next turn and there's nothing your opponent can do about it. John Silver is going to give things reckless when you play him and when you quest with him. Mother Gothel, as long as she is exerted, your opponents cannot quest. So that's still furthering this whole playstyle of, hey, I do things, you can't do things. I pursue victory, you cannot. So this is turning into a very, very weird control deck because rather than directly controlling your opponent's boards, you're more controlling their plays. The other thing with John Silver and Mother Gothel, I have them as 3 copies apiece, but you can easily do 4 of one and 2 of the other, and it will still work and be really good in this deck. So either play the combination that you like best, or play the combination that interacts best with what your local community is playing. And lastly, we've got Beer Guest. As I said earlier, you're not really trying to play this on turn 2. It's either going to be singing it on turn 3 or later with one of your characters that if your opponent tries to challenge into, they're going to be punished for doing so. Or playing it on turn 4 alongside a 2 cost, or on turn 3 alongside of a 1 cost character. Like, this card is there so that you can get those perfect pieces at the right time. Now, the other thing I want to look at is with us playing the Shift Hades, one of the things you have to keep in mind is how many villains are in this deck. You've got the Duke of Wellington, you've got Cruella de Vil, you've got Hans, you've got both Mother Gothel and John Silver. And then if you manage to keep another Hades out, you've got him too. Like, that is the potential of 6 different characters. And you've got easily 4 copies. So when you are questing with Hades in this deck, unless your opponent has done a really good job of clearing your board, you should be easily getting an additional 2-3 lore. Best case scenario, he quests and gains like 7. So, this is going to be a fun deck where your whole goal is to upset your opponent's playstyle and gain advantage. It's going to play very similar to a control deck, but at the same time be very different from a normal control deck. And it's kind of like this controlling mid-range aggro deck that's going to kind of exist on its own. Now, if you wanted to bring in some other cards into this deck to give you some more direct effect board options, what I could see you doing is bringing in some Genie on the Job. And if I was to do that, I would take out like 1 Shift Hades, maybe a copy of Be Our Guest. That gives you 2 of them right there. I just kind of like where I've got it because my direct answer for me personally is put out Prince Philip. Make your opponent waste cards where they don't want to, and then like if you really need Prince Philip back, Hades, recur them back from the discard pile. So this is what I've got. It's really good. The other thing that's nice here is you didn't have to go overboard with non-inkable cards. You're looking at 4, 8, 10, looks like 14 from my count, which is not bad. Like, one issue with Emerald as a color is a lot of your very nice and very useful cards in this ink are non-inkable. So this allows you to play a very good deck that's still got a good inkable to non-inkable ratio. And you also are, for the most part, capping at 6 ink. And for a lot of this, you can just go to 5 and stop. You only need to go to 6 when you're playing a card that's going to immediately gain value in the moment. Because both John Silver and Mother Gothel, while both amazing cards, do not affect the board as much as Kuzco and Mad Hatter will in those earlier turns. So, and then, as I said, your Shift Hades, he's there just as finisher. The only reason we're playing him at 4 is to make sure we see him. I could justify bringing him down to 3 to play an extra copy of something else, but I kind of like where it's at with a little bit of extra draw power. I see him often enough that he's there when I need him. So, this is Sinister Intentions. If you like the content that we're making on this channel, please like and subscribe. And if you have any ideas for future content, please put it down in the comments below.